So, where are you from, Peter?
I was born in southern New Hampshire in a town called Amherst.
Okay. And is that where you're currently based?
Currently based in Boston, but my second home is the Hampton Inn, doing about 60, 70 speeches a year.
So you travel a lot.
I do,
So
all over the world.
Tell us a little bit about what you do.
What I do is I speak to high school students, college students, and members of the military on jump-starting their personal finances. And I do about depending on the year, 50, 60, maybe up to 70 speeches all over the world at military bases overseas, and then high schools and colleges in the United States.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that 5 years now.
How did you get into it?
I got into this whole business because I was that guy. I went to college and a lot of companies offered me a credit card and I was happy to take it. And very quickly I got myself into a lot of credit card debt. And one day I got a bill from a particular credit card and I couldn't even make the minimum payment. And I didn't understand exactly what that meant. I just kind of figured out if I owe them $5,000 but I can't even make the minimum payment, something's wrong here. Something's terribly wrong here, and I didn't know exactly what it is, but it motivated me enough to pick up a book and start learning about personal finance. And when I finished that book, I realized two things. Number one, how much I didn't know, and number two, how much potential, I was 19 at the time, how much potential someone my age had if I just kind of got started early. So I dug my way out of debt, I wrote a book on it, and then eventually I started speaking because I knew there were millions of Americans just like me who went to college or went out into the working world with zero financial education and made a lot of stupid mistakes without even knowing that they were doing it.
You said you were 19 when this sort of epiphany happened. How much credit card debt did you have at that time?
I had $5,000 worth of credit card debt, and the interesting thing about that is, number one, at the time I was working and I was earning minimum wage. Number two, I also had student loans that were racking up slowly in the background. And number three, I entered college with several $1,000s in savings, and I blew through all those savings and got $5,000 in debt within 6 months.
And you spent the money from your savings and credit cards buying necessities like food and shelter?
Not at all. I was buying, and the other interesting thing about that debt is I didn't have anything to show for it. I didn't have a big giant flat screen TV that I could point to and say that's where it went, or a guitar I could say that's where it went. It went to dinners out, it went to road trips, it went to clothes, it went to clubs, it went, and I quite frankly I don't even know where it all went, because you look back on that and you say I could not have spent that much money that quickly. And of course a lot of it went to interest rates. I did the big no-no, which was taking a cash advance on my credit card, where I didn't realize this at the time, but the interest starts right away the moment that you do that. And you know, in hindsight, when I started tracking my expenses and realizing where my money was going, I started to see, well, you know what, okay, that is how I could spend $5,000 that quickly. I tracked my expenses after I realized I got to do something about this debt. And I found out that in 1 month I spent $350 on taxi cabs. And that's something that you'd never put in a budget. You'd never think, you're always paying cash, you never get a receipt. And I started tracking things like that, and I realized there are hidden expenses. You know, we think of rent or tuition, books, and fees. Those are the big expenses. But there are a lot of hidden big expenses that, that pop up, and you got to keep an eye on them.
In hindsight, do you regret spending all that on a credit card for stuff, for what you bought?
I do. I can't lie and say that I didn't have a good time. I really did. The problem was I had a good time for 6 months, and then I spent the next 3.5 years trying to pay it back. And I made some strong changes in my life that in order to get out of that debt that I probably wouldn't have made if I didn't have it. I graduated college in 3 years, primarily to get rid of that debt. I would have rather gone through 4 and taken my time, but I had to pile on the classes, and I took classes during spring break while everybody else was going off doing their thing. I didn't have the money to do anything, so I was going to take a class and try to finish up earlier. I wanted to go home for the summer. I went to school in Miami, and a Miami summer is not for a New England boy like me. But I had to stay down to get that finished within those 3 years.
In hindsight, as it relates to this debt and what you bought on this credit card, what would you have done differently?
What I would have done differently is I would have. There's one principle that I didn't understand at the time, but now I live by, and that is I think that in America you can have anything that you want. You just can't have everything that you want. And for 6 months of my life, I did actually have everything, and then for 3.5 years, I pretty much had nothing. And I would have rather just smoothed it out and said, I'm going to get these things over here, and the way that I'm going to get these things over here is I'm going to give up these things over here. And I try to sort of bring that message to college students, high school students, and members of the military, trying to say, whatever you want, if you want a flat screen TV, I actually support that. You just need to tell me what are you going to give up in order to get that flat screen TV. Maybe you take in a roommate, or maybe you're not going to eat out for the next 3 months, or whatever it may be. That's what I try to stress, because that's the one mistake that I didn't make. The one thing that I did incorrectly. I tried to get everything in 6 months, and I had it, and then I spent 3.5 years paying it off.